All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Sorry, it's been a little break, but our friends from Wind Vintage are here in Los Angeles. They are visiting for about 10 days. Both Eric Wind and Charlie Dunn have been in Los Angeles, and there were a couple of great events which brought together an incredible group of watches and even more amazing group of collectors. I have been showing some of them over the last few days on Instagram, especially, but I also posted a video on my shorts too of one of those watches. But the highlight for me was most certainly seeing up close the resurgence. This is the watch that is the Jan Shapiro watch made in the US. I think of all its components, save for the jewels and the hairspring, and I think one or two other components are all made in his workshop. The hairspring comes from Precision Engineering, which is a subsidiary of Moser. And the jewels for the prototype actually came from Switzerland, but for the production, which is backed up for 3 years already, great news for him, but also a lot of work. Even the jewels are going to be actually sourced within the country, in the US from North Dakota. Um, it's an amazing story for American watchmaking, truly living up to the name Resurgence. It's a great. Oh, hey,
Hey,
man,
hey.
nice to see you.
Likewise, man. You were just educating us about this watch, so I came over for more.
Thank you. It was great to see it in person. Let me see if I can actually transfer the little video I have, so we can have a little bit of, um, maybe a little better look at the watch. Although before it gets processed, the videos kind of look off, but there's no harm in trying. Um, but yeah, I was just telling everyone that basically every single part of it is going to be made in that workshop after all is said and done. For now, the jewels are still from Switzerland, but even they are going to come from North Dakota. Um, and it's just incredible, in the sense that maybe it's not the Daniels method, which would have been another kind of exclusivity and even more expensive. Right now, I believe it's, depending on the case material you choose, it's $70,000 to $80,000, which is a considerable amount of money, right, for a time only watch, for sure. But for a watch that really represents something larger, something bigger than just horology, for a watch that's actually made in house, including the movement this time, unlike the Infinity, for example, which sourced a great movement from UWD, Uhrenwerke Dresden, Lang und Heine's manufacturer. But this is made in house. It's made in Southern California, and that in and of itself makes me really excited beyond the aesthetic beauty of the piece.
And that guilloche, right, that you were describing,
Yeah.
it has very strong vibes of like silicon wafer.
Mm.
It's a very unique design, right? And it's definitely like when you said it was like infinity guilloche. Is that what he's calling it?
He's calling it infinity weave because it's
Infinity
like
weave.
you, um, there's the traditional basket weave, which would have been basically these stripes going in different directions. But in fact, one of the sets goes into infinity in the sense like it's even finer, which means it's even harder to cut with that Rose engine. So
I mean, I
it's
love this. I love this guilloche, and it for me it screams. And I mean, I was one of my degrees is in electrical engineering, and older, so this really does look like a silicon wafer to me. It looks really nice.
yeah, let me see if I can actually transfer that. No naughty pictures. I also, of all the watches I have seen, I also saw Lyrique Etude number one, the watch that Bill Sanders kind of shepherded, the independent, sub 10K, great watch for the price point and really interesting project. Let me see. No, I can't. I don't think I can. It's not going to be. Well, I'll just give it a shot. Why not?
So while you're triggering that upload, this was an event he was at. Or you went to his office, or he was on tour. You went to his offices. I don't.
So he's in the process of moving the workshop. It's going to be ready in August. This was in the event that Wind Vintage organized
That's
with
right. Wind Vintage is what you said.
Collective Horology, which is again a group of collectors who do these sorts of collaborative editions of watches, which has become really popular. But when they started, it was a relatively novel idea. And I kind of like the fact that they are an independent group and not a journalistic outlet that has turned into something else in the recent years. Hey guys,
Yeah.
JB, so nice to see you both. Let's see. All right. Hopefully, it looks too bright. You said you're an engineer. Is there anything on QuickTime Player that I can use to quickly make this a little better looking?
Not on QuickTime Player, no. But the built-in Apple editor should be able to apply filter pretty quickly. Although the easiest filters are throwing it up on your IG and going through the filter menu.
Let's do that. I can always remove it later. Yeah,
It's crazy to me. Like, I've been invited to a couple of Watches of Switzerland related events through Mayor's Jeweler, and I was invited to my first AP event, the first AP event I went to. I've been invited to a couple, but I don't have these type of events. Like, I really need to look into it. Like, Mental Watches is local to me, or not local, but close. I need to find out who's doing these events because I don't see this stuff, and I think I'd lose it if I did.
Well, how close are you to Palm Beach without, doxing yourself?
No, I mean everybody knows I'm in the Tampa Bay area, right? Palm Beach is a solid 4 hours away, but that's still I'm okay with that. To go down for like a weekend,
I should, I
for any
should
sort of
put you
event.
in touch with. I should put you in touch with Eric, because the funny thing is, me being so nerdy and connecting on YouTube with Eric and Charlie, on that level, I really didn't realize how fun they were to be around. How goofy they are. It's just they're an amazing group of people to begin with, but they also know how to have fun. Let's see. All right, so there we have.
Oh, come on, this is ridiculous. Look at that.
It had such a warm glow too.
Now this is yellow gold.
No, pink. This is
It is rose. Okay, I was gonna say. So is it? It was 18 karat.
Yes, sir.
Because it almost looks like that beige where like they mix it with platinum. That's so pretty. That's so pretty.
The reason it looks so good also is because we had a chance to take it close to the window, so a lot of sunlight actually in this, unlike most of what I have to film. And that's the movement as well that is also built in-house with the spokes in
Oh my
14
god.
karat
Oh,
gold.
look at that.
The entire case band is engine turned as well, which is
Oh, this is crazy, man. I love this. I love this. So, and take note, all non-Swiss watchmakers. Basically, if you're not a Swiss watchmaker and you're not a German watchmaker, you make nationalistic watches, and I don't understand that. Right? I don't know why companies do that. So take note that, like, if you're trying to bring horology to your shores, bring horology to your shores. Like, oh, look at that. This is crazy. And that's going to look good in any light.
yeah, it's and there are a few different movement designs that you can choose. It's the same gear train, but there are like three customized kinds of bridges as well, so a lot of different options. Case materials are, I believe, pink gold, of course, tantalum, um, zirconium, stainless steel, and I think that's it. All 38 millimeter case, which is very traditionally, dressed without being too small. But as you can see, it be looking that perfect on my wrist means it's a relatively small watch. Um, it's just something
What the weight feel like?
substantive, substantive.
Because it looks like it's more than 10 mil, like thick. Like it looked like it's a little bit of a chunky boy.
It's I don't actually know the thickness, but I would say it's probably around 11 and not thicker than that.
Which
Possibly,
is still solid. I mean, 11's still
yeah.
great.
The so going back to the details, yes, okay. So out of the 180 components within the whole watch, only 32 are actually outsourced, 19 of which are the jewels, which are going to be from North Dakota in the actual production version. And beyond that, um, the hairspring is from Precision Engineering AG, which is H. Mose's company subsidiary, but it is vibrated and set with a Breguet overcoil at his workshop. But he's actually, for the production again, he's going to do the hairsprings himself too, from wire he sourced from Fort Wayne Metals. So at the end of the day, the only non-American parts so far would be the crystal, the mainspring, the gaskets, and the spring bars. And I'm sure by the time he starts making those watches, he can probably replace those as well. So that it's a great story, I think, to make a watch like that, an American watch. The hands also, by the way, don't show fairly well in this video, but it's a spade set of hands. So the tip of the hour hand is very beautifully beveled and multi-dimensional, and the minute hand is elegantly twisted there. And yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece.
I can't pull watches like this off. They're just so pretty.
Hey, Robert.
It's good to see that he's done well enough. Like, because I was worried that Shapiro would not make it. Mike David, I'm not wrong on the Daytona for JJ. There's context. Context matters. I'm glad that he's been able to tough it out. Or I don't know, maybe he's doing maybe he's just rolling in it, but I'm glad he's still around.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know how difficult it was actually in the first years, but I know that he didn't immediately sell out. And the reason he has such good relationships with Collective Horology is, I'm going to pull that up. They did a run of 10 watches very early on with meteorite dials of his Infinity. Let's pull that up. And that helped him, source a lot more offers.
Yeah, I was really worried that Shapiro and Weiss wouldn't make it through COVID because everybody was just on HiFi's train. Still a really nice watch, man.
Yeah. I mean, look, honestly, here's the thing. We were just talking about JJ's new pickup, of course, on JJ's Watch Hangout, which, of course,
although with GMT on it, Wank Hangout also flies. Nice little Freudian slip. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, I was on it, so I guess that says everything about me more than anything else. But so I'm going to drop the link to JJ's Watch Hangout, but we were talking about this new pickup, which is an Octa Lune or Automatique with the moon phase from FP Jean. And Shapiro always says that, almost every single one of his customers, whether it is for the Infinity series or the new Resurgence, have an FP Jean in their collection. So that seems to be actually the gateway drug to independent brands.
JJ and I are going to be having a conversation.
So I think for when you, in hindsight, I think you were right to worry about it like that, but how things unfolded in the pandemic actually brought more people into his brand and maybe made him more successful faster than in the long run. So I feel the Infinity is going to pick up in the future as well, in the sense that, nowadays, of course, you are saying, like you as in general, it's the outsourced movement, it's the German movement, blah, blah, blah. But you might have a moment in the future where people say, hey, it's like the brass movements in FP Jean, it's not made anymore. And this was his first, serious attempt of establishing a brand in series. And I'm sure they are going to go for much more now that he's experiencing this sort of success. Because everyone loves asking, right, who's the next Jean, right? Maybe he's just in our midst and we don't know how to recognize him. I mean, I'm sorry to speak in such messianic ways. I have that tendency, but Shapiro seems to be on a very good path right now. 3 years of orders already, about 80, 90 watches that he has to produce over the next 4 years. 6 people right now in the workshop with 2 more coming in.
I don't think people think about that enough when you talk about that. So you got, 80 watches, let's say, over the next 3 years with 6 employees. The scale of effort and detail and finish it's required to make watches like this. Like, if you think about that, if you said that in anything else, that to produce 80 units of anything with 6 employees would take 3 years, you would just be laughed out of a room. I don't think people think about that enough for these high horology pieces, like how bloody difficult it is. All the hand finishing, the precision involved, right? There's nothing you don't buy, especially for the hand assembled hand finished pieces. There's no piece of machinery you buy that helps with the manufacturing per se, right? It's like it's an extraordinary amount of effort that goes into this.
So towards the end of JJ's show, I was trying to say, since I actually had a chance to, like, quite, as a in a serendipitous moment, I actually got the chance to sit with Shapiro a little further on when I was invited to a Shabbat dinner, and he ends up living right across the street. So he comes in after a while. And he was talking about that there was the option that he would go just completely on his own, according to what you can call the Daniels method, right? Because you can basically get that book, Watchmaking, by George Daniels, and follow through the entire process and make everything mostly by your own hand, of course with help of machinery, but nothing electricity operated really, and make watches that way. That would be much more expensive. That would be perhaps 2 to 3 watches per year rather than 12 or a little more, or rather, I think, yeah, he needs to make 20 to 25 per year now. But he has tried to find a midway, basically. So he has a team of watchmakers, 4 of whom are kind of pure watchmakers, 2 who are machinists, so they actually know how to engine turn, how to build parts. But there are aspects of even their process that is machine operated, which I will be able to report on in August when I get to see the actual workshop. Again, they're not hiding it. They're pretty transparent. We just didn't have the time to talk about, so what exactly is machine operated. But I think the price point is obviously, it's not cheap by any means when it comes to the resurgence. We are talking about, let's see, I think I have this in my notes somewhere. It might be by Case Metal. Okay, so each piece has about 400 to 500 hours of work on it, of man hours on it. 70,000 for the stainless steel or zirconium, 80,000 for the tantalum, and 85 for the pink gold and white gold, palladium plated white gold. So
it's not bad at all.
It's not cheap, but it's also not bad for the kind of product you are getting. Genuinely, I mean, it's very limited quantities. Again, I'm pretty sure he's probably gonna move to another series after Resurgence. He's not gonna continue producing the same things over and over, although I'm sure the case design will probably stay, at least as part of the lineup. So it's an important moment to get into it. And again, people keep asking who is the next FP Jean, and we talk about Laurent Ferrier or other independents from Switzerland, and sometimes we talk about German-made watches. But I think this certainly holds its ground, and it's you essentially you have to follow where other collectors are going. So if all the FP Jean collectors are kind of moving in this direction, inevitably it's going to pick up in a certain way.
Like if I didn't know, if I set aside Longa and Journe, if I was just thinking about the Swiss core watchmakers and I didn't see the branding on this, I would go, this is one of the most beautiful brigades I've ever seen. It's a beautiful watch. And if you told me it was American made, I wouldn't like it wouldn't even occur to me. Like it's a beautiful watch.
And incidentally, of course, Shapiro is a history teacher, right? So he is a good student of Breguet, of Daniels, and all these people, and he has two brilliant lectures recorded and posted on Horological Society of New York's channel. I should drop the links to those as well. In the first one, he talks about just the art of engine turning. So he picks up the thread before Breguet, talks about how Breguet brought it into not only watchmaking, but into the decoration of the dials in earnest, and how things developed from there. It's a great lecture. Again, he's very unassuming about it, and he thinks it's boring. But I guess my mind works in that way too. I enjoyed it a lot. And he has a second lecture, which is more recent and which was the first in the series this year for HSNY, and that is on American watchmaking. So you also have someone who has a very particular kind of mind when he went about this, and he doesn't have, I mean, I think he has a publicist, but I don't think he has a CEO. He wants to be the face of the brand. He loves interfacing with customers. He loves learning about them, establishing relationships with them. In fact, part of the conversation we had on that day, this Friday night, was he was heartbroken because one of his previous customers sold his Infinity Series watch. Right, the guy literally was sad about it. So, and if you think about it, hey, that's not bad. It means your watches have resale value. It's already having a secondary market. Josh was a little broken up about it. Mike David, thank you so much. 20 New Zealand, beautiful watch. Ali, just relax and let Rolex enter you.
That sounds a little questionable right there. Random sidetrack, since we mentioned history, for anybody out there who is looking for a book to read and you're interested in something that does intersect with horology, I just started reading a book called The Watchmakers by Langa and Langa. It is a worthwhile read. I do like how Shapiro and Gautier, they interact with their customers. I really do like that intimacy of it, right? And I do like seeing young brands. I mean, you had also Mr. Punkenhofer from Karlsruhe Unsonne on as well, right? I do like seeing these people interact with their customers, and I can totally see it, like being a little wistful, right? If one of your watches that you made for a customer and this customer enters the secondary, I can totally see that being an emotional thing. Yeah. God. We're going to hell.
And Ben likes his punning on what you already said, young brandos. That's but yes, absolutely. But it's important for people to realize it's, of course, like you said, horology has to come first. There needs to be a passion for that. There needs to be something unique they bring to the table in terms of the horological value of the watch, in terms of the aesthetics of watchmaking. But beyond that, Shapiro is aware that part of it is marketing, but in the good old American sense, that as the good old book has it, making friends and influencing people, not in a sinister way. Um, so he's very much interested in getting his name out there, and he knows that's where he can make the difference with the personal touch.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that's rarefied air, right? I mean, there are not many watchmakers that will enter any secondary value or pursuit without some form of marketing. Dufour and I wouldn't even say Jorn anymore. Jorn has a marketing machine behind them now. I mean, you see Jorn's and Monocle and whatnot.
Jean
Um,
Jean has Chanel money behind it.
yeah, exactly, right. So it's like, um, it's rarefied air. This is so beautiful. So you said actually it would be the same mechanism but different details to the movements. Do you have more information on why that is?
I think it's mostly in the name of providing options for the customer, but I have actually photos of those movements too. So let me post. Well, I think those we can. They're good quality, so we can look at them. They are more or less the same.
So while he's looking for them,
Yeah.
for those of you who have not considered it, because Young Brando does not currently offer YouTube subscriptions, he does have a Patreon where he offers subscriptions and a near daily, I would call it a newsletter almost, where he posts a couple of interesting watches. And then he also posts, I don't know if you would call them private StreamYards, but StreamYard, which is the platform he used which is the platform Young Brando is using to stream YouTube, also allows you to pre-record and post links. So he has that in the Patreon. It's, for me, it's well worth it because there are plenty of watches. Like the other day, he had a AP dual time that I love that watch, but there are plenty of watches which I never think about, would never see. There was a Chopard Luke the other day that I never think about them. I mean, I never think about them. Um, and then it wasn't too long ago you had a what should we call it? Fleurier that I would have never thought about, or a Kudoki I would have never thought about.
Mm.
So for those of you who want an option to YouTube subscription, Young Brando has a Patreon. I personally think it's well worth it for the education and the exposure it provides,
Thank you. And
which is almost exclusively not Rolex, which isn't entirely true. He does cover Rolex too, but Mike David, screw you.
speaking of marketing, Alireza handles my marketing better than I do. But it's daily in the sense that if I skip a day, I double up on the next one. So
You absolutely deliver.
about 100 different watches that I present on a monthly basis, mostly 3 by day, sometimes 4, sometimes 6, and a lot of times, like Ali said, they are grouped in a certain way. I might focus on a particular region, country, historical period. I might just obsess over a complication, and let's say present you 3 different options for flyback chronographs, or 4 different dual time watches or travel time pieces. I might focus on one or the other brands. Sometimes there are Rolexes too. One time that I focused, for example, on alternative avenues to get watches online. We all look at eBay and Chrono24 and our favorite secondary dealers, perhaps, but there are also some hidden gems, some websites that I share on the live stream too, but more frequently and in a more detailed fashion with my Patreon subscribers. That being said, my memberships have just become available on YouTube, so I am going to set them up very soon, probably for next month already.
So that doesn't become available with monetization as well. It's
Not
actually a separate.
not right away. I don't know why it took time. Since you pushed me about it, it was on my head, and then I sat in front of my computer one of these days, and pulled up the monetization section, and it actually was available suddenly. So I was with all the intention of writing to them and saying, like, so what should I do to have this on? And it's now available already. So
Very cool. Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Look at this.
So yeah, this is one of the other options for the bridge plates of the movement. And you can see the level of detailing and finishing a little better, perhaps, because the gear train is not even there. Yeah.
Every one of those edges is finished.
And these are, by the way, the initials of the last names of the 5 people who worked on this particular watch. But I think by now there are 6 and 2 more to come, if I'm not mistaken. So
I don't know what's happening there with the, I want to call it, it's like it would be the horological equivalent of a Damascus fold. There's those 2 lines going through the bridge plates, right, that look like almost the metal was folded there. I don't know what's happening there. I like it. It looks beautiful.
it's Côte de Californie. Californian waves. I think Josh calls it American Côte de Genève, but I think I'll tell him to just call it Côte de Californie. It fits the vibe. Southern California, after all, is where he's based. And then this is the other option.
I can't stand up for a few minutes. Man, you and JJ have completely screwed me up. Like, now I gotta spend. I'm actually pretty good, like, in terms of not spending too much on, like, a given watch. In my head, I was thinking, other than, like, my Grail piece, which is still 15407, either in steel or rose gold, I wouldn't break the 50K mark. Like, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm not gonna break, now I'm gonna break the 50K mark. You guys suck.
You mean between John and this, or?
So if it was me, right? So both Jorn does make larger watches, but I actually tend not to like their larger watches aesthetically, right? But, like, I've always said, like Zeitwerk, Lange, obviously, or Shapiro made a watch in 41 mil, right? Something like that. But in my head, I've always thought that I couldn't, except for a single Grail piece, I just couldn't see myself breaking $40,000 or $50,000 retail on a watch, right? I have other places to put the investment, but the last year especially, I don't know if it's my age, if it's my version of a midlife crisis, but I'm feeling the pangs to really just put down for one of those. You have Grail and then you have Legends, right? And you have, I think, some of the Jorns, some of the Langes, certainly, these new Shapiros, they're legends, right? The Dufour legends, Smith legends, right? I just think that if I'm gonna do the 3 and the G, I need to have not just a Grail, but I need to have a legend. I don't know. It's gonna be expensive. So Ant G asked, so right now, Young Brandon just mentioned he has kind of a 3-year backlog. Shapiro does.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember exactly how he lays it out, but Gary G, or Gary Getz, who writes for Quill and Pad as the resident collector, he has these various different categories for his collecting habits, and one of them is patronage, right? In the sense that, of course, there are those fun watches that one can buy without incurring too much financial risk or too much spending too much money. And all of these categories, of course, you can define according to how much you are yourself willing and able to spend on a single watch. There are watches where you can perhaps buy to build the base of a solid collection, and you don't imagine that you would be making your way out anytime soon. There are watches that you can look at least as partially as investment because you are spending above a certain limit, and um, you are perhaps incurring a financial risk. So perhaps you put that money towards watches where you would be at least safe, right? Rolex, Patek, F. Bejon, etc. comes to mind. AP, of course. And then the patronage category can basically be combined with either one, but you are basically not only uh, investing yourself emotionally and financially into that watch, but also into the future fortunes of that particular independent maker, because you believe that they need to exist within this horological market or ecosystem. I think Shapiro, at least for me, belongs to that. So if I were already in that range of spending around $50,000 per watch, I would take the extra step and certainly place an order. But it's a few levels above my pay grade already.
That's a compelling argument. I do appreciate it. And I'm gonna. And this is a question I wouldn't answer by default, or I would answer in a certain. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys? I just saw you two online and I just had to hop on. I must say, I must share with you, like, you two have such a vast knowledge about not watches, and I feel like I'm kind of a pleb on the subject, so I just want to be here and maybe contribute a little bit of my own if I can.
I assure you, you're not the pleb on the panel right now. I'm definitely the pleb on the panel right now.
I like the
Um,
I like the hairdo. It's
Yeah,
you
thanks.
look amazing.
Thank you
And
so much.
I want to read your super chat because it is on the official currency of the sovereign state of Israel, but also of the Watches and Style channel. These are these 6 shekels. Good morning from the sovereign state of Israel with the sun emoji.
Thank you.
so the I did want to ask. So like I answered this question when people ask me. Kind of, I do obfuscate to a certain extent. Uh, so I don't know actually. I think just kind of by default, I've assumed you're in the watch industry, but you're not.
Me?
Yes, you're not actually in the watch industry yourself.
Hopefully, I will be, but no, not currently, and nor have I. What was that McCarthyite oath? I'm not, nor have I ever been a member of
Oh,
the Communist Party. I am not currently, and nor have I ever been part of the horological industry, but I have no particular allergies or aversions towards it either.
but
I
you
think
have been in you. I mean, I don't want to say horology is part of luxury lifestyle by default, but you have been in high fashion and luxury for years now. I mean, you have to be at least adjacent.
sure, and I've been collecting watches for 2 decades now, so it's and I I don't want to reveal too much of
Yeah,
my.
no, that's fair. I'm in the same way. I understand.
But that's how my mind works, right? Every single watch I bought, and people know, who have been extreme loyalists. Like I have Thomas Broadbent, for example, who is brilliant when he turns up in the chat as well. But he knows, for example, that every single watch I buy, I bought after studying it for like 2-3 years. And it has disciplined me in a certain way. So I always, at any rate, have to save to buy every single watch that I do. So I put aside my money, but in the meantime, I read as much as I can, and I was doing that even before really learning these sorts of information on the internet was very rare. You had like the oases of certain early forums where you could learn, but you mostly had to go after printed material. Those books themselves were very expensive and very hard to get to begin with. So that was an adventure in and of itself, and I think it paid off in terms of what I learned in the process, what I learned about my own tastes, and ultimately, I ended up learning much more than what I needed, because that year-long process usually leads to a lot of twists and turns. Because you keep an open mind, you actually realize, well, that watch kind of looks cool, and it's great on Ali's wrist, but now that I put it on and tried it on in 3 different places and 2 different dial options and whatever case, it's really not for me. So I have gone through this process with hundreds of different watches, some of which don't even register on most people's radar. And I was lucky enough that I was living in New York for the most part of that, and then I ended up in Los Angeles, which, both good and bad, is a great teaching environment, because you have both the best and worst of dealers in both of these centers, right? You have both the people who are very honest, very knowledgeable, and very much willing to share that knowledge, and there are also dealers who use the traditional asymmetry between the lack of knowledge on the part of the buyer and the potential wealth of knowledge and insider information on their side to manipulate, to create fake watches, forgeries, and Franken watches, etc. So it's been a learning process that, I guess I was just blessed by not being a great businessman and not having a lot of money to spend. So I had to be always careful and learn with each step along the process.
I'd be interested, if I may, as one of your Patreon subscribers, if I may ask if you would consider on one of your upcoming newsletters to put out like what you would consider your top 3 books on horology to be.
Oh, of course.
I would be interested. And this, I don't know if you know who Art Bell is, but you're like screaming Art Bell vibes with a cigarette in the profile shot right now.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what who Art Bell are. Is that it? No. What are we looking at?
Art. This is the watch that young Brandon was talking about from Shapiro. It is a prototype of a new production watch he's putting that is almost entirely 100% American made. The prototype has a couple of foreign parts, crystal hairspring, the jewels. But it's an interesting story, and he covered it a bit on JJ's channel, and he's covering it more in depth here. But Art Bell is Coast to Coast AM. Yeah, Z-Man knows exactly what I'm talking about. A notable radio personality for many decades on late night radio, a notable conspiracy theorist, and a paranormal enthusiast. He is the one who came into the woods and found me as a dwarf baby Sasquatch and pulled me out. He's an interesting character, man. He's an interesting character.
That's an interesting reference. But yes, I would love to do that. And there are, the 3 that I can share that's very common knowledge, and that we don't need to dip into Patreon for that. I think immediately would be get George Daniels' watchmaking, get his the art of Breguet, and I think it's also for the 3rd
George
book.
Daniels also wrote The Art of Breguet.
Yeah, and that's that's very dry. It's very, it's very much a catalog of significant Breguet watches, but you end up learning a lot about what constitutes by now. The reason I'm saying these two books first is because I know a lot of people want to go into independent watch brands, right? And I know they want to venture out into the desert and find that next, big thing. You have to understand that a lot of the indies, a lot of the serious ones, started by absorbing everything they could find about George Daniels and Breguet, and then went on there. So having studied those two books, you will be very well armed to see into a lot of the nuances of the horological things that independents are doing, of the visual elements that they're using to decorate their watches. You start learning where it comes from and why it makes sense on that particular watch. For the third book, as a general advice, again, without getting too specific, I would say choose a book on a brand that you find as your core, right? If you're a Patek guy, I think you do owe it to yourself to get the official history written by Nick Fox. If you're a Reverso guy, again, Fox's book on the Reverso is great. If you are an AP guy and you want to move beyond the Royal Oaks, get AP complicated watches, of the 20th century.
Yeah, that's the one I have. I love that book.
If you want to focus on again, if you want to stick to that geeky, nerdy realm as the third book, I would actually say get the book on watch faces by Helmut Kott. This is a physician who ended up becoming an auctioneer, and then was part of the resurgence of Urban Jürgensen, and wrote a bunch of things in the process. But he has a book called Le Cadran, where he catalogs this diverse array of watch dials from history. And that, I think, is also very valuable. Again, it will train your eye in a certain way too. You will know what dials are original, what kind of features they have, how they look like. But it will also train your eye aesthetically too. What do I like? What are the kind of dials that appeal to me? Is it the time only stuff? Is it certain kinds of decoration? Is it a certain architectural or aesthetic style? Art Deco, Bauhaus, Art Nouveau, or whatever. So it is. I think those three books, or as a third one, choose the brand you love and get a book that speaks to you on that brand.
All right, that's at least two books I did not know about. I didn't know that the Breguet book was also by Daniels. For some reason, I didn't know that. So watchmaking has been on my list, but I've always felt, frankly, I felt intimidated.
It's not as exciting or intimidating as people expect. It's really a book that can teach you watchmaking from scratch. Of course, you will have to go out and find the necessary tools and get certain kinds of machinery, which you may or may not be able to afford. But many watchmakers actually started with that book. That's how, for example, the whole legend, Roger Smith, whose number 2 pocket watch just sold for $4.9 million.
$5 million bloody dollars.
By Philips, including the premium. That's how he came into being, basically. He read the book, he made the watch. George Daniels thought that it looked too handmade, So number one was disassembled and presumably lost to the ages. And he came back with number two, which I had the pleasure to hold in my hands just a little more than a month ago, and which just sold for almost $5 million, as you mentioned. There's another book on Breguet. Maybe you were confusing it with that, Ali. Emmanuel Breguet has a book called Art and Innovation in Watchmaking. Breguet, Art and
I
Innovation.
think that's the, yeah, I think you're right. That's the one I'm more familiar with.
So the Art of Breguet, which exists, I think, in a number of different languages, is originally written in English by none other than George Daniels himself. And then, the other, yeah, I will save some for my Patreon. Let's put it like that.
There we go. Now you're learning. This is about being a businessman. There you go.
And this is the other book that I was talking about by Dr. Helmut.
Oh, okay. So that's the one I missed. Let me look at it on.
I believe he originally wrote it in German, although I have it in French. And I think that's the easiest version to get. And it's, there's so many beautiful dials too. So it can actually easily double up as a nice coffee table book as well. So even if you don't geek out necessarily about watches and dials in my unhealthy way, you can still get some pleasure out of it by having it as a nice decoration. Here's a Tiffany nipple dial, which is the breakfast of champions, by the way. Munching on your partner's nipples. I think that's a breakfast at Tiffany's. If there was ever one. A beautiful Patek dial for the 5974 with the Calatrava cross under the signature and the Breguet numerals applied.
Hey, Ali, I'm making an Instagram post. Can I tag you in it?
You can tag me in anything.
Yeah, just took a picture of my 3 watches, and you can see Lord in the background, and it says super chat. So you don't see you. So
no, it doesn't matter.
That's okay. And Lord, it's okay. They can see you in the picture.
It's I love my face, man. Plaster it.
You should. You should love your face.
Thank you.
Lord's got more confidence than I do. I've got a face only a mother can love, and my mother doesn't love mine either.
That's like the.
Hey.
I don't believe that, by the way. I mean,
I grew up. It was odd. It's not a cultural thing. It must have a family thing. I grew up in a family where we never celebrated birthdays, so I forget my own birthday, and I remember only when my mom calls me and reminds me that she was in labor for 26 or 27 hours with this size head. So my mom's got she's got a wicked sense of humor when it comes to her boys, her 2 sons.
Well, I mean, look, I also think, I think self-love is essential, but I think there needs to be a healthy amount of self-hatred as well, but that goes a little too far. So it's not good for your health, Ali.
No, I'm good. I'm very comfortable in my own skin.
I mean, remembering your own birthday can be a quality of life improvement, I think, if I may make a
maybe right. It's like I've never really, it's never bothered me. I've gotten used to, I literally, I mean, I say I'm 46 years old. I do, it's not I guess it's not the South Korean thing because they're a full year ahead, but like on January 1st, I'm the new, like that's my new age. That's just the way I've just gotten used to that.
Yeah, so the other thing that, of course, this book on dials educates you is not only variations, but since there are such high quality and detailed pictures of dials that are either in their original state or in the best condition you can find them, or copied, like from catalogs of Sternfrère, for example, right? The family that owns Patek Philippe, which has this illustrious history of being the best dial makers in the business. You also know what they are supposed to look in their original state. So your eye trains to see any particular modifications or refinishes or whatever else. Again, I'm not necessarily saying if the dial has been cleaned up, that is a watch that should be thrown into the trash bin. I mean, I have, for example, my Universal has the hands reloomed, and I don't necessarily mind that. But anyway, so this kind of thing trains you into understanding those kinds of modifications and refinishes and relooms and etc. So you can make more educated purchases as well.
I guess it would also be a good reason for me to finally. I actually have French queued up in my Rosetta Stone subscription, but I haven't started, so I guess it would be a good reason for me to to start that journey.
I want to see if I feel like the book had. Let me see. Yeah, I think there is. There's a book. There's an English translation on it, which is being republished at the end of May, it said, but it's still on pre-order in watchprint.com for the princely sum. I told you these books are expensive. 380 Swiss franconies.
Well, I mean, it's not even remotely close to as expensive as the bloody Halloween books.
Right.
So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but so watchprint.com actually has the new editions, I believe, of both the French and English coming up for pre-order, and they're both listed for 380 Swiss francs.
There we go. I got it, or I will get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before I derailed you like 3 times, which I always do, I'm surprised you even let me in on the StreamYard. What was on your agenda?
The agenda was basically to to talk about what I have been seeing for the last few days when I have been absent, not on the live stream. So those different watches that I got to see, and I wanted to start with Josh's watch first, Jan Shapiro watches, since again, it's great horology, but it represents something larger than that especially because it's American made and it is in Southern California to boot. So for me, even more meaningful. And then I was gonna show a few more things from Instagram again that I saw. This double signed universal chronograph. We usually see the Caracas connection with Rolex and Patek Philippe with dials signed by Serpico y Laino. But of course, Venezuela having always been quite rich in resources, they have had a lineage of different jewelers attracting a well-heeled clientele. So Enrique Fefa was another one, and they have a few interesting universal pieces, one of which is actually in Eric's inventory. And I always say this, I shill for Eric for sure, for absolutely nothing except for my friendship and admiration for him, just to put it out there. And I have, absolute trust and confidence in his sourcing as well. It's always the best example, always the best in show, and he has great watches. And this is Universal Compacts, 3-register with big eyes, that was once retailed by
I think you're still sharing Diz's screen, by the way.
I am. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for intervening.
What are you sharing? I'm sorry, I'm not. As you understood, I'm not 100% with you, and I'm sorry for that. But Lord agrees, so.
No, it was just he just needed to swap screens. We're good.
Okay. Okay.
So this is the chronograph that I had the chance to see. It has these, Arabic numerals that are slightly sunk, like kind of inlaid onto the dial, leaf style hands, and then heat blued chronograph hands.
I'll be honest with you, man. I think you won the wrist lottery though, because you could definitely wear more versatile watches than I can. Like these would look like Skittles on my wrist.
Yeah, this is a small watch. I mean, even with those stylized lugs, and I was kind of trying to be, false, mock poetic, so to speak. They call them teardrop lugs because it brings tears to your eyes, but it's so beautifully shaped and stylized that it does have a larger presence on the wrist, but at the end of the day, it is a 32.5 millimeter watch.
That is a nice shape. I like that.
That's a beautiful case. I mean, from a watch from 1943, preserved this nicely, it's hard to find. Usually they are bent out of shape, polished to bits. The dials corroded much more heavily, not just tiny bits of distortion, on the periphery or something. This actually has a very warm glow at the end of the day. But yeah, it's a beautiful case. Most certainly, it might strike a lot of people with modern tastes and bigger wrists as something small. But I highly recommend anyone to try on, some of these 40s chronographs if you can find them in good shape, and you might if you source them through trustworthy people like Eric. It's a different genre. Ozzy and I talk about this quite a lot, in the sense that I feel every watch has its kind of size and presence, that you want to wear Panerai. I am a huge advocate of get the 44 or 47 if you can, because that's how that watch.
That's Panerai. Yeah, that's what Panerai is supposed to be.
That's what it's supposed to be. Great way to put it. No ifs and buts. And again, no disrespect to people who are wearing the 40 millimeter ones, but that's my vision on it. So when it comes to classic chronographs, I think there's nothing wrong with wearing something that's a little bit smaller than what you're used to otherwise. But of course, there are always reasonable limits, right? I can on certain occasions pull a 44 millimeter watch. It will still look big on my wrist, but depends on what I'm wearing and how I'm
Yeah,
carrying.
you also have the ability to coordinate style. I can barely dress myself, so that also doesn't help my case for. By the way, you have if I have his name correctly, because he was just on your channel the other day, Jose Perez Troika.
So he goes by two different names, Perestroika or Periscope. Both are his ventures online.
Okay, so he was. I just noticed that he was in the chat chiming in on a topic that you have covered in depth recently on the Omega.
Oh, nice. Jose, thank you for dropping by. Let's That's amazing. Let's pull that up. Quick intermission to my LA watch talk.
And that was a good episode you had just a few days ago with him.
Yes, I mean, I'm so still very much obligated to him for entertaining me and coming to talk about his work, and specifically his work in connection to that allegedly forged Speedmaster, because he actually has an injunction that has been placed on him by Phillips, but he still came and actually talked about it and set aside his time, which to me is exemplary. 275. Let's pull it up. Incredible. Thank you so much, Perez. Thank you, Jose. So, case number is
That's the right
175.
one.
Um, which link should I open, Jose?
And if he's still there, or is the StreamYard link pinned? I don't know.
What do you mean?
If he's still there, if he wants to jump on and.
Oh yeah, of course. I think it is pinned. I think I have pinned it. Yeah.
It is pinned at the top. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, please do jump on, Perez, if you would like. Please do. That would. But I think it was previously sold by some other auction houses.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear it.
Oh, sorry. That's my notification sound.
Yeah, baby, we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll mute myself.
No worries, man. Okay, if Perez comes on, we will take a look at that.
Yeah, I have to run an errand like 10 minutes. I know I'm not that, contributing right now, but I'll still leave my camera on and everything, okay?
Of course, man.
I still like the Art Bell vibes. I'm good with that.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure. So
It doesn't let me do it.
we were looking at this, and then on the same event, a fellow collector whom I met there, Sam, had this beautiful limited edition Cartier Tortue on that actually is made to evoke like a swimming turtle, and has this wood marquetry dial with coral and tiger eye inlays that make up his shell, and then chanlevé enamel on the bezel that make up the head, tail, and legs, with the two eyes set in as round diamonds. Of course, the leather strap has to be green as well.
Yeah.
And then on the back,
Oh,
you have the view from underneath, again with the same chanlevé enamel technique. One of 25, limited edition from around 2000, in the large version of the case, so 34 by 24, and it has an ultra thin hand wound Piaget movement in it. So beautiful, elegant piece on a déployant clasp as well, matching the style, with the crown topped off with a diamond in this case, as you can perhaps see right here.
oh, that's a nice departure from the normal cabs.
Right. Rather than sapphire, they have rubies sometimes on platinum watches and custom pieces, but yeah, more rarely they, especially if the watch is diamond set elsewhere, they sometimes cap it off with a diamond on the crown as well. Your friend Mikey.
He's a class guy. He's just one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
JJ says, thank you, man. Thanks, JJ, for dropping by. Periscope and Owl. And your friend Mikey, $5. Sometimes ago, I was looking at Universal Genève watches, small seconds, recommendations on where to learn more about Universal. Okay, for Universal, especially if you want time-only pieces, there is a book coming out on the Paul router, but there is a very extensive reference website that I will just drop in the links. It's literally called Universal Genève PaulRouter.com. It's a great reference. Hey, good morning to Denmark. How are you doing, Memobox? And then I'm always blanking out on this gentleman's name. I think the last name is Sala, but I think the first name is either Pierluigi or maybe, yeah, I think it's Pierluigi. He has a book on complicated Universal watches, and the print edition has been sold out and is extremely expensive whenever it actually comes up on the secondary market. But on his website, you can actually order the PDF version of the book, which happens to have extra content, additional content, actually. So you are even getting added value in either case. So that would be my suggestion. Take a look at those two resources. Let me see if I can find Salah's website for you. Please hit the like button, by the way. That does make a huge difference for a small channel like this.
Memovox is onto something. Young Brando and Co. sounds like a corporation waiting to happen.
Maybe, I was thinking what would be a natural way of changing the name, 2 decades into the affair or something. And maybe I can make it like, Old Brando and Sons or something like that.
There we go.
So let me see, where is his webpage? Pietro Giuliano Sala. He has a majestic name. I shouldn't have forgotten. Pietro. Okay. That's also very self-explanatory in terms of the website. Libro Universal IT. So that's the other book. I think those two books/resources are great places to start if you want to educate yourself on Universal Genève a little bit. Yeah, I was gonna go into Antiquorum, but let's see. I know Jose is still in the chat, but we can.
I don't know. Depending on what device he's on, maybe the pinned link doesn't actually show up properly.
Let me just send in the link again. If he wants to join, and I'm sure, maybe he is otherwise occupied and just prefers to listen, and that's completely all right. But this is basically an auction that Antiquorum is holding in a couple of days in Hong Kong. And they have actually a very wide assortment of watches, some contemporary pieces, some near vintage.
And I apologize, Brando. I'm sorry. It's 1, so people that I work with on the other side of the world are starting to wake up and email me. And before I get too engrossed in that, I want to go to bed, because otherwise it's going to be another all-nighter. And all-nighters going into Monday are my least favorite.
I can understand that.
So I am very happy. I had been away for about 2 weeks, so I hadn't seen you in a long time. I was very happy to see you twice today. I do appreciate you having a conversation with me out of band. Have a good rest of your show. Everybody, do not forget to leave a comment on the video. That helps push it out to the algorithm. Search, if you go to Young Brando's page, you can search for your favorite brands and pull up his videos. He's got at least 3 interviews with Eric Wynn, because I have watched those 3. So there's a lot of good stuff out there, folks. We need channels like this to save us from having to buy the $400 books. So it's a good investment. And I appreciate it, man. Good luck to you. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thanks for coming by and contributing. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you even letting me on, because I don't think contributing is the right word. I think detrimenting, I'll make that word up, is more accurate. So have yourself a good evening out there.
Thank you so much. Sleep well. All right. So lot 7 is a good place to start because it also happens to be the watch on my thumbnail. This is an F serial flat 4 50th anniversary Submariner 16610 LV. The Y serials being a little more preferable since they fall early on in the production cycle and more properly onto the anniversary. This piece was sold on October 6th, 2003. It's presented here on its original warranty papers. And the low end of the estimate in this case for lot 7 actually comes on to about $16,600 US. Apparently, the piece comes with its original guarantee and the green tag, which must match the serial number, as you can see there. Oops. At lot 5, there's a Chrono Tokyo chronograph 2 with the white dial. These are the kind of the diffusion brand of Japanese independent maker Hajime Asaoka. Although that terminology, of course, is not entirely appropriate because he designs other kinds of watches for Chrono Tokyo that he does not necessarily offer, he does not at all offer as an independent, and vice versa, right? He doesn't really make quote unquote cheaper versions of the Tsunami, for example, for the Chrono Tokyo. And one of the popular lines for Chrono Tokyo has been the Complication series, which includes now a few different generations of the chronograph. This is the generation 2, which actually has an NE86 chronograph movement. This is a Seiko bicompax chronograph with a date function, self-winding, 4 Hertz, with about 45 minutes of 45 hours of power reserve. So quite a workhorse type piece. And I think this is a great piece if you can get it from his website. The problem is, of course, with these micro brand independents is they are very much based on the drop kind of release schedule. So they have limited releases which come up every so often, and they sell out pretty quickly. I believe this was a 500 piece run, and it sold almost instantly. The classical sizing also helps at 38 millimeters in stainless steel. And this piece actually comes with its original set of accessories. The condition is quite clearly laid out here, and the pre-auction estimate is 3,200 to 5,200 in US dollars. Lot number 2 is one of my favorites, Modern Tudors. While you take a look at that, I'm going to take a quick break here. So give me a second. All right, sorry about that. I'm back, and we are talking about the upcoming Hong Kong auction by Antiquorum. Oops. Let me see. Can you still hear me? I hope you can. All right, we're looking at lot number 2 at the upcoming Hong Kong auction by Antiquorum. This is the Tudor Black Bay 58 bronze with the 369 dial. This particular piece is offered as a boutique exclusive, so it can only be bought from or ordered through a Tudor boutique, which are more recently becoming more widespread. They have been opening so many new branches. We have 2 here in the Southern California area, so we're a little pampered. I love the fact that this actually comes on a bronze bracelet, which has the T-fit clasp for easy on-the-go adjustment. For those who like the Black Bay 58 slash vintage sub aesthetic, I think this brings something unique to the table, not only in the choice of the metal, which already resonates with both the dive watch genre, but also about the warmth of vintage patina, which certainly is at play on a bronze watch. This particular example looks barely worn, so you can actually build up your own patina with it. It has that gradient chocolate brown dial as well, and it is, as is the case with those rare Explorer dial versions of the Submariners, the 369, which I think fits with the vibe of this watch. This is reference 79012M, and the piece has a pre-auction estimate ranging between 2,300 to 4,900 US dollars. Lot number 3 is Tudor's version of the Daytona, and before the public woke up to them, the public discovered them, it used to be a great alternative, a great budget alternative. Of course, you are getting the generic movement in this case, which you can recognize probably already by the layout on the dial. It is the Valjoux 7750 with the date at 3 o'clock as well. 6912 layout for the chronograph registers, classic panda look with black bezel inserts. And these pieces are called big block because they do wear like a big block. Thickness of the watch is 14.5 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken. The case is the traditional Rolex 40, so about 48 millimeters lug to lug. Let's put it like that. And I think even today, it's a good option to have. This particular piece actually comes basically with a full assortment of accessories, a fitted box, the warranty papers, instructions, booklets, and extra links. Of course, the piece is on the original Oyster bracelet too. A great piece, great alternative, sort of a budget Daytona in so many ways. I would highly recommend the big blocks. Still, reference is 79,160. And the estimated value of the watch here is 6,400 to 10,300. Again, they have been on the up and up forever now, but I think relatively speaking, you still have a decent deal there if you like the aesthetic. Speaking of Tudor chronographs, you have the newer version, of course, here in the reverse panda configuration. This is a little bigger, has the Tudor manufacturer movement 5813, which is basically part of a student exchange program with Breitling. As you know, Breitling gets a caliber from Tudor in exchange of their B01 self-winding chronograph. So Tudor's MT5813 is basically Breitling's B01. In exchange of that, Breitling gets the MT5612, which goes into their Super Ocean Heritage 2s, Heritage 42s. Reverse panda configuration, black dial with these two silvered white registers, which are slightly recessed. I believe they also have that radial guilloche style finish, which adds some depth. If memory serves, I might be a little off here, but I believe they do. In either case, these are a little bigger at 41 millimeters, but they're also slightly slimmer than the earlier big block chronos. I think more like 14 rather than 15.
Hey, sorry, I'm back.
Hey man, how are you? Welcome back.
Okay, are we alone here, or is Ali left? Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I wanted to ask if I can interject with a small cultural question.
of course.
I want to make a show on my channel about the movie Platoon by Oliver Stone, and I want you and Ali to participate.
Okay, that would be
So
great.
I I wanted to ask Ali, but I'll just DM him and ask him if he's in, because I know he liked the movie. So
Okay, sounds good.
sure,
Sounds great.
sure. So, go ahead.
Yeah.
I intercepted your talking about the Tudor Chrono.
No, no, that's quite all right, man. It's we can get back to it.
So what's up? What are we talking about?
We're looking at some of the watches they have on offer um, in the upcoming Antiquorum auction from out of Hong Kong. It's gonna be on the 13th um, with local time, so tomorrow, basically.
Yeah.
And yes, this piece has a pre-auction estimate ranging between 2,900 to 5,200 in US dollars.
What do you think about this piece?
I think actually aesthetically speaking, I like it better than the older big block chronos they had. They also have one at lot 3. This is the old style they have,
Yeah.
which in a way aesthetically it harkens back more strongly to a Daytona, but then again the
Yes.
layout is quite different. And of course it is based on the Vajru 7750, um, which is a good and a bad thing, right? You know, it's good because it's a workhorse. It's good because practically any watchmaker worth his salt knows how to work on it, how to fix it. Um, that being said, uh, the newer piece, I think I like it a little better aesthetically. I think it's a, you know, it has its own look, although it certainly looks like a relative of the Daytona. My problem with it, even when I set aside my personal aversion towards date windows, um, I just don't understand why they insist on using that big snowflake hand on on a chronograph, especially with rather small registers to begin with. Like that hour hand can block more or less the entire register here or here. Um, as you know, I mean, the Daytona doesn't have Mercedes hands, right? It has the
Yes.
baton hands. So why not go for another solution here? I know and I fully understand that it is part of their brand image, brand aesthetic to use the snowflake hand everywhere. Um, but they could hold off on it for, for a couple of watches. I mean, they do it for the Ranger, right? Why not for
Yeah.
this?
The Ranger has the special butt plug hand.
Yeah, Pan 15.
I really like this aesthetically. Um, I understand your qualms about the snowflake hand, but to me it just works. But it's just a matter of taste and nothing more. Just
I think, look, I mean, it's again, it makes it more recognizably a Tudor watch, and I like the fact that they have over time um, invested in that Kennedy manufacture, which they brought into their new manufacture. That they make movements In this case, the movement is actually not quote unquote in-house, but borrowed from Breitling. It's their automatic chronograph movement, BO1, which I consider to be an improvement on the Vajra 7750. Um, Others might differ. Your mileage may vary, but I think that's a good choice as well. And ultimately, yeah, I prefer this to the big block, uh, but it's a little too big. It's a little too thick for my taste. Um, so even if the snowflake hand were not a deal breaker for me, it would have been a no-no in my case. I mean, there's a reason I gravitated towards the earlier modern remake of the Type 20 when I chose my quote unquote iconic chronograph, right? For me, Daytona is a great looking watch. And at least up until the recent generation, it had that sort of um, more conservative dimensions. But I was never in love with the Daytona, even though over the years I grew to like it more and more. The Speedmaster is too large for my liking, and this is also one of those watches, and this wears even larger in a way than the Speedmaster with its thickness and everything. Even though on paper it's 41 compared to Speedmaster's 42.
um, yeah, you're making some interesting points here. Do you think that they could do away with the date window?
Yeah, I mean they could, but I believe, you know, in a way, not that they are really trying to quote unquote ruin or deface things at Tudor, but they are making very conscious decisions to make what could be the closest quote unquote competitor or counterpart in their catalog to the Rolex watch. They're trying to make it as different as possible. I think that's why there's a date window here. That's why there's a snowflake hand here. That's why there's a movement and a case that's bigger than the Daytona. So they can eliminate the date window, and maybe they will, but it is the combination of all these distinct elements that make this a Tudor Black Bay chrono rather than just Tudor's version of Rolex's Daytona, which I think is a good thing overall.
Hmm. Well, I think the date obviously makes it more functional, like a daily piece, which I think many people are looking for when they're buying a Tudor on that price range. You know.
Yeah. And Bruce G, yes, absolutely. I was just talking about it. This is lot one on the auction I was covering tonight, and lot three was the big block, which I used to like a lot. Um, and I do think, on quote unquote an objective level, I think the Black Bay Chrono 41 is an improvement on the older, which doesn't necessarily make it the watch for me, but I think it is. And I think it's a beautiful looking watch. Again, don't take me wrong. So you also like the newer Tudor Chrono better than the older big block? This
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I was in another window. The lot three, you mean?
between these two Tudors, between lot one and lot three.
Oh, I
one?
would definitely go for lot 3. I like, I mean,
Okay.
I think that it shows the, how would I say it? Like the connection between Rolex and Tudor. Like you have the Cyclops, and as you said, it resembles a Daytona more than it resembles something that is unique to Tudor. I think that you said something similar to that, and I really like that about the watch. And yeah, that's my pick anyway. But obviously, the first lot, number 1, is modern. It's better, like in sense of technology, if you want to put it like that. So, but I still go for this one, even though I'm wary of vintage.
Well, I mean, this is kind of at that threshold. You can think of this more in line with your 1671 all. Your 5-digit GMP Master 2, which you are wearing now. Let's show that if you would like.
The focus here is a little tricky, but it's pretty well. Okay.
Good. It's good. And
Do you
it
like
looks
the Jubilee?
jubilé.
Yeah,
Oui, oui, monsieur.
I love it. It gives it like that vintage touch, and
In fact, I should have said Messi, just to put the emphasis on it, because you know that unlike Italians, the French use C for an emphatic yes.
oh,
Yeah, I think it looks great.
thank you.
I also thought, just to change things up, to use my Datejust's Jubilee bracelet in the past for my Coke once every so often, but I was always too lazy to go through with it. But I think it's a great look. The Marathon Man, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
Which,
Marathon Man. What a movie.
of course, that had a Pepsi bezel, but great watch for sure. For those who want to hunt for the picture, I actually have a still from that movie on my Instagram. I'm not gonna just hunt for it and interrupt our conversation here, but feel free to follow me on Instagram and hunt for that picture whenever you like. I'm gonna drop the link. And JB reminds that on the new one, unlike the big block, the minutes totalizer is for 45 minutes rather than 30, which of course JB really likes because he likes watching soccer as well. So 45 minutes to time the half.
Yeah. What did you think about the game, by the way, the match?
Which one? The Champions League final? Or
Yeah,
something?
Inter versus City.
Yeah, look, I think it's well deserved. The funny thing is, Manchester City, like in last year's campaign, they they had stretches of the game against Real that they genuinely dominated, but they were eliminated in the semifinal. This year, they dominated Real Madrid especially in the second leg of the semifinal matchup. In the final, there was something off.
Yes.
As an armchair, literally an armchair critic, right, sitting on my armchair right here, feels good. I don't want to judge the mentality and psychology of professional players, professional footballers playing at that level. But then again, in moments, I had a certain sense that the nerves were getting to them, that the moment was getting to them a little bit, because at the end of the day, everything like that is a psychological threshold. I mean, yes, they won a lot in the recent years, but until they won that first league title with Roberto Mancini, and I think they won an FA Cup either right before that or after that, um, they had to cross that, right? They were spending a lot of money, but they didn't have that recent winning culture. They established that, and then they went on to win like 4 league cups in a row, and a bazillion Premier League titles in the recent years, but they were lacking that Champions League trophy. And I think in this final, you kind of felt that. And Inter actually had a lot of interesting chances to score, even though they were playing very defensively. They just couldn't get the ball in. Um, but ultimately, I think the team that, when you look over the campaign, the team that deserved to win the trophy won, no doubt about it. And
Yes, I agree. Sorry.
it's an immense achievement to win, you know, to win all three. They won the
Yeah.
domestic cup, they won the domestic league, and they won the Champions League. They won their competition, and they won it without being beaten once. That must count for something as well.
Yeah, it does.
What did you think? Did you support any one of them to begin with?
Well, I usually tend to go with the underdog, and this time I went with the underdog, and I have some kind of affection with Italy. I like Italian disco music from the 80s, the 70s. So,
Yes, sir.
and I just like Italian history, and I appreciate Manchester City, but underdog, and I like Inter because I liked them in the 90s when I was a huge fan of football, soccer,
Mm,
whatever you want to call it. I used to follow the Champions League. I was also a fan of Juventus back then and Ajax. I was a fan of many. I just enjoyed good football.
of course.
Anyway, I went with Inter, and I was very disappointed. Also because they had quite a few opportunities leading to the end of the game, and they just missed them.
Yeah.
It was such a pity.
Um, yeah, when it comes to Italian teams, I love AC Milan. Um, Not necessarily to say that I have anything against Inter specifically, because I don't, I'm not actually Italian. I haven't grown up like that. I don't have that sort of passion or antagonism against the other team. I actually think the blue color they have on their jerseys for Inter, I found it always so beautiful and so striking. So I like them for that reason too. Um, but I literally had no dog in this fight, so I watched it purely for football. It wasn't a particularly entertaining game, but
Yeah.
all in all, I understand, because Inter had to press them, but still remain very defensive responsibly. Manchester City were clearly not performing at their usual level. And, again, my humble guess, without assuming too much as an armchair critic, was that they were dealing with um, the pressures of the moment, their first ever Champions League trophy. Um, and I wanna double check this before I say something inappropriate, but
You have the gift of the internet, my friend.
I feel like, did City have, okay, they did have a Cup Winners' Cup from 1970 before, um, but not necessarily. I mean, not the winningest team by any stretch of imagination. Um, so I think they were essentially caught up with crossing that threshold, which they successfully did. So do credit to Manchester City, but I think it's even more important that they did the treble, and that was a big chip on their shoulder as well, because the other team that completed the treble in English football before was, of course, United, the red side of Manchester. So that was a huge achievement for City.
Yes. Yes. Uh, I like the football talk, but this Donald Duck watch really intrigues me. So maybe you can say a few words about it.
Yes. So um, the lovely thing about Jarajanta's brand is he had all these very extravagant precious metal, super complicated watches, perpetual calendars and chiming watches, or a combination of both. But throughout its existence, especially from the 90s onwards, he also had a number of different, more accessible and often sportier, or more everyday wear oriented pieces. And a lot of them had this case, the arena case, which always struck me like a blockier, and maybe even a more aggressive version of the modern Breguet wristwatch case, which is very elegant and which has that fine fluting on the case band. In this case, the fluting is much more um, quote unquote crude. The case itself has, stubbier um, lugs, which are also a little shorter, I believe, than the standard teardrop lugs by Breguet. And these are actually licensed Disney products that was his genius at the time. It all started with the Mickey Mouse, and he kind of um, made his way into different characters, and it's always the Disney character at the center of the watch, engaged in some sort of movement or activity, whether it's swinging a golf club or waving a flag. In this case, it's Donald Duck playing golf. And you realize that this is a watch that's not just designed by a committee, right? It's actually designed by a designer because
Yes.
the like the opening for the jump hour kind of looks like the hole, right? As if Donald Duck is aiming there. Um,
Yes.
and of course, the golf club actually is the retrograde minute hand. So when it completes 60 minutes on that fan like cycle, which is actually mother of pearl, it snaps back to zero, to right here. So right now it's showing 42, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think these are very cool and wearable watches, but they're also too popular, at least in these Disney versions, for their own good. So a lot of times they're very expensive. Um, again, for what they are. My suggestion would be, if you're interested in the complication, that combination of the jump hour and retrograde minutes, there are actually some great options by Jarajanta um, that have, no Disney dials, but dials that are just as interesting and sometimes, to me, actually preferable. Let me show you a watch like that. It's actually one of my favorite pieces. I think I found it right here.
I'd be right
This is
there
also,
getting a refill for my Coke Zero.
please, one for me as well, please.
No problem.
Uh, so there we go. And this can be even more attractive to, I think, a lot of people in the audience of this channel, because it's just a much sportier version of what we were looking at. The Donald Duck watch was a 34 millimeter case. This is 38. I think if you measure it with the crown guards and the crown, it actually adds up to 41 even, but it wears really well. I've tried on a lot of these watches. Um, this is the black dial version. There was also a white dial. Um, has this carbon fiber like design at the center, which gives the dial a little more depth and dimensionality. The aperture for the jump hour is moved to around 12 o'clock. And
So
the red,
the hour is 7:22.
yes, sir. It's not that hard
What?
to read. Yeah,
What? Sorry. What is that type of watch called? I don't know what is the definition. Like, what do you call this type of watch with?
jump
Like we saw the
hour.
Donald Duck in this one. What is it?
Jump hour.
Jump hour. Okay.
Yeah. And in this case, it's also retrograde minutes. So you have this upward facing crescent, single minute hand. There's also a center sweep seconds as well in this version. Um, and retrograde minutes also is very self-explanatory in the sense that at the top of the hour snaps back to zero, and at the same time this jumps to the next digit.
Ah, okay. So what there's a second hand, right? I see. Second
Yeah.
hand with a red tip.
Yes, sir.
I see.
Yeah, right here.
Yes, very nice. Very nice.
And they're heat blued as well. So all of these elements are, first of all, filled in with lume. So actually the hour glows, and these 2 digit bigger numbers glow as well in the dark. The sword hand for the minutes glows too, and it's heat blued. So it's a pretty legible thing. On this piece, it's on a rubber band with the matching
Yeah.
buckle. But there are versions of it with the metal bracelet as well, matching stainless steel. And this
This
is
is
how this looks from the profile, which I've always liked as well.
yeah, it's very thick. At least in my eyes, to my eyes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lord, this is a Gerald Genta, and I missed if you said it.
Yes. Yes. Because I was, you remember, we came here from Donald Duck, so I was saying there's actually a more accessible version in the sense that since there's no hype around it,
Oh, that's very affordable. Like, relatively.
yes, because when we switch back to Donald Duck, right, the pre-auction estimates, I think, is already twice, and it might go for even more, right? The pre-auction estimate for the Donald Duck is 8,400 to 12,800 in US dollars, and this is listed on Chrono 24, basically with the full set, box and papers, for 4,500, 4,500, and they're open to negotiation as well.
Yeah.
And to me, more importantly, again, this is, to me, this is a more beautiful watch. It's very sporty. It's larger. It has that carbon fiber style look on the dial, which I think is very cool. No disrespect to Disney or Donald Duck. Well, actually, all disrespect to Disney, because they're fucking racist and have indulged in all sorts of Nazi propaganda in the past, but let's not open those files. Um, but anyway, so I would much rather wear something like this than Donald Duck. As you know, as quirky and adorable as it is, I think this is the cooler watch, anyways.
Very cool. Thanks for enlightening me about the jump power and everything. I am,
Yeah, it's also
yeah.
you know it's a cool complication, um, relatively accessible. It's not like a chiming watch. It's not like a perpetual calendar where you already have to venture into serious territory, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. um,
Yes.
there are options, at a few $1,000s. You can get a pretty good piece actually, at around 5,000, which still is a lot of money for a watch, but it's an interesting complication that adds something unique to a lot of people's collections. And in that sporty option, I think it's also just a very cool industrial aesthetic, um, and not too unfamiliar to, I'm sure, a lot of, pardon me, followers of this channel. Yeah, here's the Mickey Mouse version of that Donald Duck that we were looking at.
Okay, that's very racist. I'm kidding. Gotta love Mickey Mouse. He's pointing, he's not hailing.
What is he pointing to this?
The
Explain
Jews! The Jews! They are to blame.
Here you have an all mother of pearl dial, and more like a downward facing crescent for the minute scale. And yeah, he's, like you said, he's just pointing in this case. So no sportive or sporting activity, unlike our golf playing duck in the last one. But
Yeah.
the functions remain the same. And in both cases, by the way, there are versions of the Jarajanta jump hour piece that have quartz movements. I would say avoid them. These two that we were just looking at lots 12 and 13 of the upcoming Antiquorum Hong Kong June 13th auction are south-winding movements. So, again, you are getting an interesting complication. Sure enough, it's not a high horological movement. Sure enough, it's an ETA derived movement. But at the end of the day, it functions great. It actually jumps at the right time and in concurrence with the retrograde minute hand. So it accomplishes the promised function.
Yes. Beautiful. It's a beautiful piece. But why does it say retro? Is that like the name of the brand?
No, retro is the name of the series because of the retrograde minute.
Retro. Okay. Okay. Can you put a year on this one?
Put what? Say it again.
A year, like to say when it was released, which year it was released.
Okay. I think his retro series was first released in 1992 and then enhanced with the larger case sporty models that I've just shown in 1996, if I'm not mistaken.
It says 1999 and 2000s.
Yeah, so it continued production of course, much after that. And in fact, Bulgari has been, before Janta was taken back into Louis Vuitton and being revived as we speak as a, kind of more loyal to its origins kind of way. Bulgari owned the brand. So from 2000 until 2022, they continued making a lot of models, and the retro genre was one of the biggest. So yeah, this particular piece is from 2000s, but I believe he introduced the line in 1992, and the sportier models came in 1996.
Very nice. Or as Mickey would say, very nice. Look, the Jews, the Jews.
Stop. the, the pre-auction estimate is 6,400 to 11,500 US dollars.
Yeah.
They have an interesting Glashütte dress watch. I really love these pieces, man.
I
This
like
is
what. Yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I like what Mike David wrote. He says a real stealth wealth watch, which is so correct. Someone sees you wearing a Mickey Mouse watch and oh, it's probably cheap, but it's a fucking Gerald Genta, man.
But speaking of stealth wealth watches, this is an amazing example of that because so Glashütte Original is, of course, currently part of the Swatch Group, but they have a history that predates that, which is very similar to Erlang und Söhne in the sense that they trace themselves back to mid 19th century to those Saxonian watchmaking traditions. And they also had a revival in the wake of the German reunification, which left the Swatch Group with a nice catalog to acquire. This, I believe, is a piece that belongs to that pre-Swatch era, even though this says 2000s. I believe it was actually right before 2000 that they were doing these. The porcelain, they're actually porcelain dials, which are even more rare than enamel. And the German city of Meissen, which is in the same state as Glashütte, is particularly famous for its porcelain making. And at 6 o'clock, you have their hallmark in the form of these two painted, hand painted, in fact, crossed swords, which is a cool accent. And in this case, you actually also have a full Ming dragon that's similarly painted on the dial. 38.5 millimeters of a platinum case, sapphire cabochon set on the crown, and
Sorry, what is the cabochon set?
sapphire.
So that's it. Did you say that in French right now?
I guess that would be saphir, but yeah, sapphire.
No, but what is cabochon set?
Cabochon is just the stone. That's
the stone.
like
Okay.
it's cut in a certain way, which is that kind of let's say half globe. Is that better?
Yeah, I understood. Thank you.
Because sometimes, so in some jewelry watches, for example, you have them cut with facets, right? Like the way diamonds are cut, right?
Yes.
Cabochon is just a rounded, polished cut.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and the movement finish is beautiful as well, right? You can see with the distinct glashütte ribbing, the swan neck regulator, the snailing and the perlage, all the wonderful details.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Can we review one more watch and then I have to bid you farewell? I
If
have
if,
to
if
do
I
something.
want what?
I said we can view. You can view with me one more watch, and then I have to bid you farewell.
Yeah, for sure. So let's. This is one of the 40 purple Ming Dragon version of the Glashütte Original's 1845 dress watch in platinum.
Yes.
The porcelain dial, full set, and look at that. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
such as a high price. I see.
is 8,400 to 11,500. But again, for a platinum watch with a porcelain dial, this if this said Patek, we would be talking 10 times the price, if not more. This was lot 14. And for our last watch together, if that was two ornates, this is basically the same piece, but in yellow gold with an automatic movement, with a self-winding movement. Yellow gold case,
Ooh.
porcelain dial. It kind of looks nice, right? With the cross swords.
Yes, it's there. I mean, they're out of place, but at the same time, they fit.
Yeah. And I think these heat blued hands look just gorgeous against that porcelain dial with, nicely elongated and very elegant Roman numerals. And these watches are numbered individually too. As you can see, even that is hand painted on the dial. Again, an amazing detail at this price point. This is the Senator in a 40 millimeter yellow gold case. And I believe also a slightly later production than what we were looking at, with an automatic movement. And the price point is more or less the same. I would certainly go for the Dragon, but this is a great option too because it's a very elegant and simple, beautiful dress watch. A Glashütte Original, and that's lot
Beautiful.
15 with an estimated value ranging between 8,400 to 11,500.
Okay, very nice, man.
Very nice.
Very nice.
I like.
I like a lot. Thank you so much, man, for having me on. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry, I was a little bit checked out earlier. I was doing other things, but I really enjoyed this last segment of the show, and
It's
of
okay.
course Ali's attendance as well.
And I hope we can discuss Platoon, and we are still supposed to do Pulp Fiction. if
We
you
will
get
do it.
on.
I am feeling much better. If you can, maybe you can tell by the way I don't know. Maybe you can tell, maybe I'm not, but I'm doing much better, man. The new medications are really helping me. And
That's great.
I
I'm very
feel balanced. I feel grounded, and I can watch Pulp Fiction now with, just sit down, watch, and enjoy, and come ready for our show about it.
amazing.
So I'm thinking about Platoon for Wednesday, but I want trouble the crowd with the details. I'll DM you about it, and we'll talk about the time.
Let's talk about the time because next week, since Eric and Charlie are still in town, um, I I might be a little patchy in terms of how much I can live stream, but let's talk. I can
Okay,
most
so
likely participate.
I'll DM you. I want again trouble the viewers about it, so I'll DM you and we'll set a time, and also coordinate with Ali, and we'll do this thing.
Amazing. Great.
Okay, thanks. So thanks for having me, man, and have a great rest of the show. As always, you have one of the, if not the best shows about watches, pure watch talk, and I appreciate what you do for the community, and I'm sure all the viewers who are watching appreciate it as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you too, and thank you for being here.
So in the words of Plato, I'll be back. See you later, man.
Come on, run, run, get to the chopper.
We'll do Predator as well. We must do Predator, man.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can seriously discuss the movie without getting carried away in the scenes, But I'll try to be
Ah,
coherent if we ever do it. I'll try my
I'll
best.
I'll hold you in check. I'll hold you in check.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce G, for your nice comment. Thank you. Um,
High five.
see you, man. I'm out of here. Bye bye.
Bye. All right. Thank you so much, Bis, and thank you, Ali, from earlier as well for being part of the show, and this also for your super chat too. I appreciate that. We're looking at the upcoming. Oh, what did I do there? At the upcoming Antiquorum auction in Hong Kong. There are a lot of different watches, a great diversity. I'm trying to. Thank you, Bruce G. You're very kind. Um, I'm trying to focus on the more contemporary pieces in this case. But if you have any suggestions, if you would like me to bring up certain kinds of watches, please feel free to click that link and send me the lot number with a super chat, and I will be more than happy to get back to you. At lot 58, we have a very beautiful 35 millimeter yellow gold Vacheron Constantin dress watch that is branded and co-signed by Favre Leuba, which is actually one of the oldest watch brands itself. Very nicely shouldered lugs. 35 millimeters. It's actually quite a nice piece for modern wear as well. Perfect three-hander. And once again, I think Vacheron Constantin dress watches remain relatively underexplored and certainly underappreciated by the market. So if you actually like the genre, it's an interesting price point. This particular piece at lot 53, which again is once retailed and double signed by Favre Leuba, Arabic numerals and alternating with multifaceted arrow applied indices. And this particular piece at lot 53 is expected to fetch a final amount somewhere in the range between 3,900 to 6,400 in US dollars. Lot 55 is a self-winding dress watch in white gold, 35 millimeters, again by Vacheron Constantin, and a three-hander. You have this time Roman numerals applied at the quarters, combined with multifaceted arrow-like indices or spearhead indices, a dotted track for the minutes and seconds, Dauphine hands for hour and minutes, beautiful silver dial giving the watch a very austere and distinguished look, screw down case back, a self-winding movement with a bumper like technology, since until a certain point in time, Rolex actually held the patent for self-winding movements with a full rotor. Some brands had to innovate or work around the technology, whether it is in the form of these bumper calibers or sometimes even micro rotors. Patek, for its turn, for example, stuck to hand-wound movements for the longest time until the patent expired and we could actually make the 12-600 AT, which was the famous self-winding movement with the full rotor that was the beating heart of the Calatrava reference 2526. That watch being the first south-winding Calatrava, and in fact, the first watch serially produced by Patek with an automatic movement. In the meantime, brands like Vacheron Constantin innovated and kept things moving, no pun intended, with this bumper technology. As you see, the rotor doesn't complete a full revolution, right? It bumps from one end to another. I certainly like this piece too, if it has kind of a smoother look to it, even though the case is relatively well preserved. Matched with a black leather strap and a stainless steel buckle, this white gold dress watch by Vacheron Constantin in a 35mm case. Beautiful three-hander at lot 55. Has a pre-auction estimate of 3,400 to 5,600 in US dollars. Lot 56 is Vacheron Constantin dress watch once again, this time in pink gold and with a design that's, I think you can obviously call Ton de Vache, but I believe these are more like devil's horns in the way they are attached to the case as well, which is otherwise quite round with a concave-like bezel. 36mm case. The watch comes on a leather strap and is matched with a later 18-karat pink gold Vacheron Constantin buckle. It looks like in great condition with applied Arabic numerals and pencil hands, with the seconds indicated on an oversized subsidiary dial with a sector-like design. And this particular piece being larger and wearing much larger, thanks to that design, perhaps is more appealing to the contemporary tastes. And it is also in great condition, so it goes a little further up in price, but still quite attractive for a beautiful time-only Vacheron Constantin watch. 5,600 to 11,200 at lot 56. Lot 62 is a Patek Philippe Ondolo, reference 2513 in yellow gold, 27 by 27. A rather square-like shape, that has its own curvatures. The lugs have a very nice shape to them with a distinctively curved crystal. A lot of times these kinds of watches are called chocolatone, since they look like a piece, like a square-like piece broken from a candy bar. As you can see, there is inside a beautifully decorated round movement, 10 to 100, which is of course beating away under a solid case back. Overall, the watch, as much as I can discern from these pictures, has a nice silver dial which shows some signs of patina. Dauphine hands for the hour and minutes, and a crosshair sign for the subsidiary seconds at 6 o'clock. That is lot 62 for a Patek Philippe Gondola reference 2513. And this particular piece is expected to realize a final hammer price between 4,900 to 7,700 US dollars. A lot of interesting accessories and pocket watches that I'm skipping over. Once again, if you have any recommendations whatsoever, please feel free to click the link and hunt down the lot number of the watch that you would like me to highlight, and I'll be more than happy to pull it up and go into some historical and horological detail. We're looking at the June 13 upcoming auction by Antiquorum in Hong Kong. Lot 96 is the two-tone version of an early attempt at producing a reduced size Royal Oak. This is the 35 millimeter case. The reference number is 4100 SA in this case, meaning that the watch is bimetal, stainless steel and yellow gold, with the octagonal bezel in 18 karat yellow gold, as well as the tapering interlinks of the bracelets, to say nothing of the dial fixtures. Traditional petite tapisserie pantograph cut dial with date at 3 o'clock and a self-winding movement with sweep center seconds, the AP logo at 12 o'clock. This is from the 70s, lot 96, and Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in reduced sized 4100 SA. The pre-auction estimate for this piece is 12,200 to 19,200 in US dollars. We're in the last half hour for today's broadcast, so if you have enjoyed any part of the show, if you have learned something from it, please hit the like button and feel free to contribute in other ways as well. Lot 97 is 5146, an annual calendar by Patek Philippe, a 39 millimeter white gold case. Arabic numerals at 3, 9, and 12 o'clock, with a plus minus power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock, an aperture for the date at 6, a moon phase indicator right above, with the signature sandwiched right in between, and at around 3 o'clock you have the indicator for the month, and at around 9 o'clock for the dates. You have feuille hands that are loomed and a sweep center seconds hands. An exhibition case back for a self-winding caliber that carries the hallmark of Geneva. This is lot 97, which is a Patek Philippe reference 5146G annual calendar in a 39 millimeter white gold case, matched with an 18 carat white gold déployant clasp as well, seemingly in great condition, with a pre-auction estimate of 19,200 to 32,000 US dollars. Take a look at this piece while I take a quick break to get some water. I'll be right back. I'm covering the June 13 Antiquorum Hong Kong auction. You're looking at lot number 98, reference number 18049, meaning that this is a white gold day date from around mid 80s on a matching presidential bracelet, and most importantly, a diamond set dial complemented with a diamond set bezel. In this case, the dial is also in a salmon sunburst color. I think this is a very attractive piece, very interesting. My previous advice stands honestly for the collector because of the premium attached to certain kinds of dials on the secondary market. When it comes to the day dates, I would much rather just get the day dates that I want in the best condition that I can afford and source the dial independently. But by all means, on the secondary market in general too, some of these unique and relatively rare Stella dials, for example, the lacquered, colorful dials, or salmon dials, when they're matched with a metal case, can sometimes fetch exorbitant amounts on Rolex Presidents, Rolex Day Dates watches. So in this case, I would say, I would always recommend that you go with something different rather than paying that sort of premium. But by all means, of course, this particular piece is actually not outrageously estimated, but the results can always surprise. In this case, the estimated value of the watch ranges between 15,400 to 23,000 in US dollars. That was lot 98. Lot 99 is a 5-digit white gold Daytona, which is in a very nice condition, comes with its punched guarantee card as well as 2 tags, including the COSC tag, chronometer certification tag. This is 16519, so it is the white gold version of the Zenit driven 5-digit generation built on Zenit's famous El Primero caliber 400. Rolex 4030 was in fact the beating heart of this watch. This piece is a black dial with Arabic numerals at the quarters, indicating the minutes and the seconds, and brilliant cut diamonds for the rest of the indices. Of course, the Rolex coronet at 12 o'clock. It is in a pretty pristine condition with the original caseback sticker intact. This is lot 99 for a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 16519. Relatively at the end of the production cycle, it was sold on February 15th in 2000, and the pre-auction estimate for the piece is 21,800 to 32,000 in US dollars. At lot 105, we have again an interesting Rolex day date, reference 18038, the single quickset generation, meaning that you can actually set the date through the crown, cycle through the dates with the crown to reset it, to adjust it, to correct it, but not the day. That is a change that would come in 18238, the generation after this. This particular piece is in 18 karat yellow gold and combined, presented on a presidential style bracelet. It also has a very attractive burlwood dial. From the late 80s, it comes with its presentation box and original warranty. And it is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere in the range between 12,800 to 23,000 in US dollars. I have about 15 minutes more for this broadcast, so feel free to hit the like button. I think I will cover a few more pieces before I close for the day. At lot 110, we have the now discontinued first generation of Rolex Cosmograph Daytona with the Cerachrome bezel for the tachometer. This is the 116500 LN with the black dial. The piece comes in good condition, but is not actually presented with any accessories or boxer papers. So it's naked, so to speak, and has a pre-auction estimate of 19,200 to 25,600 in US dollars. Lot 115 is a dial with significant amounts of patina on it. This is a 16808 with the nipple dial from the late 80s. The sunburst blue dial has turned to this sand-like color, in significant swaths of the center of the dial. And the watch is otherwise in a good condition, with the case that still preserves its hallmarks quite prominently behind the lugs. And this gold sub with the nipple dial, a patinated blue dial with the matching blue bezel, is expected to fetch a final hammer price somewhere between 17,900 to 30,700 in US dollars. At lot 119, we have the Rolex Zenith Daytona again, Rolex Cosmograph Daytona from the 5-digit generation. In this case, it is 16528, meaning that we have this beautiful piece in full 18 carats yellow gold, the matching oyster bracelets. In this case, we have a white dial, black outer rings for the chronograph registers, those slender index markers for the hours is something that has been brought back to the new Daytona with the renewed lineup 126500, which had even a recent edition just a couple of days ago to introduce, to celebrate rather, to commemorate the centenary of Le Mans, the world's oldest endurance race event. This is a relatively early example of the 5-digit in 18 karat yellow gold, to the extent that you have the inverted 6 at the 12-hour counter, which you find at 6 o'clock. Once again, you have that great sense of balance, which distinguishes the dial of the Zenith-based movement, caliber 4030. And of course, the continuous running seconds at 9 o'clock rather than 6, which is, of course, a feature of the in-house movement, one of the ways to distinguish it. This is lot 119 for Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 16528. The piece is expected to fetch an amount somewhere in the range between 28,800 to 38,400 in US dollars. At lot 122, we have an example of the so-called Sophia Loren. This is the Rolex GMT Master 2 in its first reference, in its early reference 16760. This particular piece, ostensibly retailed by Tiffany, no comment on that, but it is an interesting look. Of course, reference 16760 introduced for the first time the so-called Coke bezel, which has black for the night hours and red for the day hours of the 24-hour bezel. It also introduced the new movement, which has the jumping hour hand, which you can adjust through the crown in 1 hour increments back and forth. And this early version of the movement was actually thicker, which ended up making the cases of the 16760 a little thicker, hence the nickname. 122, a Rolex GMT Master 2 16760 in stainless steel, purportedly retailed and signed on the dial by Tiffany and Company. This piece has Rolex service papers that comes with it, and it is expected to realize a final hammer price somewhere between 17,900 to 35,800 in US dollars. I have about 2 more watches that I want to talk about for tonight, ending at midnight. So if you have any questions that you would like to send me, anything that you want to share in the last moments, feel free to send in a super chat. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon on the next live stream. We're looking at a big red. This is lot 125, a stainless steel Daytona, reference 6265 with the reverse Panda dial, black background and silvered white chronograph registers. Stainless steel tachometer bezel matches the stainless steel case, screw down pushers, and a matching oyster bracelet in stainless steel. The nickname Big Red, of course, comes from the writing of the model name over the 12-hour counter with big letters in the red font. This particular case seems to be very well preserved, good condition. Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 6265 in stainless steel. And the piece has a pre-auction estimate of 62,000 to 75,000 US dollars. Lot 127 is the now discontinued Smurf. As you know, the white gold version of the Rolex Submariner that is in the current lineup has a blue Cerachrome bezel, but does not actually have a blue dial. People do use this nickname interchangeably, but some others call the 126619 the Cookie Monster because it has a black dial and a blue Cerachrome bezel, which makes it look like the open mouth of a Cookie Monster. of the Cookie Monster, I should say. But this is the 116619 LB, which had a matte blue dial matched with that blue Cerachrome bezel. Of course, the watch was presented on a matching oyster bracelet in white gold. And here at lot 127, it is presented with an estimated value of 28,100 to 38,400 in US dollars. For the last watch of the day, please hit the like button. If you would like to contribute, feel free to do so. You know how. The links are provided in the video description. I have also added the information to the crawling ticker now, and I'm going to post the links to the chat as well. As you know, this is a fully independent and autonomous platform, which of course allows me to give you at all times my objective and unbiased take. But it also means that this is a platform that is run through your contributions. Of course, I do my part, and not only in terms of the time investment, but the quality and quantity of content on this channel is directly affected by the number of contributions I receive in terms of the super chats, in terms of the PayPal and Cash App contributions, and in terms of the currently 6 people who support me on Patreon and who thereby also receive, of course, daily exclusive content, which you should consider. The tiers are very clearly laid out there. All of that being said, again, all this equipment, including the chair and everything else that I am getting for this little corner that I'm building for myself as a studio, is done through your contributions. So any amount is welcome. I want to recognize before I sign off and before I present the very last watch, which is going to be lot 131. Mike, David, my friend Deserves, and your friend Mikey for their generous super chats, and everyone else for your interjections, interventions, and comments and questions from the chats. Thank you for your presence and support. Please do not hesitate to hit the like button on the way out as well if you haven't done so. You're looking at this beautiful limited edition Audemars Piguet chronograph, one of 500 pieces released in 2020 to celebrate the opening of their new museum that is integrated into their manufacture in Le Précieux. 40 millimeter case with these teardrop lugs and bimetal, stainless steel, and pink gold. The model is called Remaster, with champagne dial. Heat blued hands for the chronograph functions, including the 12-hour counter, the minute totalizer, as well as the centrally deployed seconds hand. And a self-winding movement with a full gold rotor, which has a beautiful sunburst finish, in also a guilloche pattern on the back, or on the edge, I should say. The piece comes with its presentation box and warranty papers. This is lot 131 for the Audemars Piguet Remaster 01. Reference number is 26595. Flyback chronograph in two-tone with a tachymeter scale printed in blue on the perimeter of the dial. Beautiful teardrop lugs, an interesting style for Audemars Piguet, and something that harkens back to an interesting chronograph they produced previously, created or recreated in a limited run of 500 pieces to celebrate the opening of their new museum in 2020. The piece has a pre-auction estimate of $29,400 to $42,200 in US dollars. That was it, folks, for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Please hit the like button if you haven't done so already. And thank you again, Mike David, Deserlis, and your friend Mikey for your contributions in Super Chats. I'll see you in the next live stream. Until then, stay safe, wear your watches, and enjoy them. I'll see you in the next one.